Welcome to the Your Child is Your Guide podcast, where we come together and level up in our ability to shift from feeling victims of parenthood to empowered creators experiencing more connection and peace in parenthood. All things empowered and peaceful parenting in bite-sized chunks so it is easily digested for even the busiest parent. The intention behind this podcast is to provide support that leads to reduced overwhelm, spanking, screaming, chronic negative self-talk, mom guilt, shame, and feeling victim to parenthood and our children's behavior. The intention of this podcast and its episodes is to deconstruct many of the generational thought patterns and cycles in a simple way that leads to us leaving each episode feeling more free, empowered, and able to handle whatever life throws our way moving forward. I am your host, Michelle Bowen, author of 2 books, Your Child is Your Guide, and then also Super Practical, Peaceful, and Empowered Parenting. I am also the mother to a 9-year-old little lady, and I am a parent empowerment coach. We are on the same team as our children, or at least parenting from this awareness definitely leads to us experiencing more connection in the home, a stronger bond with our child, and less power struggles, more peaceful communication, versus when we are perceiving our relationship with our children to be a me versus you in some type of hierarchy where the parent is, dominant. It's more so like, yeah, I'm the team captain, but this is still a team. And the more that we keep that in our awareness, or the more that we give ourselves permission to parent from that awareness, far more peace in the home, for sure. Just like there would be far more peace. There is far more peace on any type of sports team when the team is sharing, communicating peacefully, and looking out for one another. So instead of hitting our children or arguing with them, having power struggles, etc., we notice those patterns are able to be transformed and replaced with peace and wisdom as a byproduct of us prioritizing our peace. Instead of hitting our children and arguing with them and having power struggles and screaming a lot, using force and fear as a way to get what we want as parents, what starts to happen is we start to notice that those patterns start to dissolve the more that we are intentionally making peace, our inner peace, and creating a peaceful home environment our primary focus when we wake up in the mornings. So oftentimes it's like, oh my gosh, I've been spanking for so long. That's just how I was raised, right? I've been spanking for so long. How do I drop this pattern? Or what do I have to make my child do so that I can stop spanking? How do I fix my child or change my child so that I can stop doing what I don't want to do anymore, right? Or I've been screaming for so long. Even before I had a child, I screamed a lot as a way to release tension in my body. And it was a habit I picked up. I grew up hearing adults scream and seeing that as a way to communicate when we're really upset. How do I stop these patterns and break these cycles? Because something inside of me is telling me that this is not how I'm here to operate as a human being. I can just feel it. It's beyond just a little bit of guilt when I scream and spank and use force and threats and ultimatums. It's beyond just a little guilt. It's more like I can feel deep in the depths of me that I am no longer supposed to continue to operate from these patterns. Not because I look like a better person or I'm a better parent if I don't use these patterns, not because none of that superficial stuff. It's just when I'm really alone with myself, there's a deep, deep desire to drop these patterns. How do I do it, right? These patterns are transformed, transmuted, dissolved. They go bye-bye to the degree that we are consciously and intentionally making our inner peace the number one focus of our waking hours. This does not mean attempting to be positive 24/7. We're not talking about toxic positivity where we completely ignore whatever low vibes that come up throughout the day or that we experience. Quite the opposite. making our peace our number one priority, meaning making being aware our number one priority from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to sleep. The more that we make this a practice, the more those patterns you no longer want to continue in your relationships with yourself and others, and all the other patterns that may be draining your energy, but that are, under the radar, not really, that we're not really aware of, even those start to dissolve as well, the more that we make being aware a priority. Through awareness, we experience more peace. Example, if I start to experience being very pissed off right now, right? If I am unaware of the emotion, then the emotion can just basically take over my body, possess me, if you will. And I'll start to speak from the energy of being pissed off. I'll start to act from the energy of pissed off. The energy of pissed off is just going to run the show until it goes away. So if I am practicing that, then when being pissed off is being experienced, I am now aware of it. Ooh, pissed, angry, irritated, ashamed, embarrassed, right? Whatever pops up, whatever energy or emotion pops up that is not peaceful or feels a little uncomfortable or just does not feel like the peace, right? The peace within all of us. When it pops up, it's like, oh, I see you. And just by saying I see you or just looking at it within myself, it reduces the charge, and it damn sure makes it to where it's less able to basically use my body as a host. It's less able to run the show and have me an hour later looking back like, damn, Michelle, what did you just say? And what did you just do? I can't believe it. And, incoming mom guilt now. I can't believe I just did that. Yeah, I did it because my emotions took over, right? But to the degree that we are making our inner peace our number one priority, and to the degree that we are giving ourselves permission to be more aware of our emotions and our energy throughout the day, to that degree, those patterns that we no longer want to run the show go bye-bye. And or they have less of an ability to take over our bodies. And we are therefore getting more and more skilled at holding space for whatever experiences arise. And those experiences can be external experiences, literal things that go down in our lives, externally, our children's behaviors, our children's emotional state of being, their triggers. We're getting more skilled at being able to hold space for the negative thought forms that we experience within ourselves. We get more skilled at holding space for the low vibe emotions, the grief, the sadness, the shame, the blame, the fear, all that stuff, right? We don't want to suppress it and we don't want to project it anymore. We are holding space for it by giving ourselves permission to say hi to it. Hey, embarrassment. Hey, rage. Hi. I know it sounds like I'm joking, but for real, that's a really beautiful introductory way to start holding space for our emotions, is to literally just start practicing saying, hi, happiness, hi, excitement, hi, rage, saying hi to them. Okay. They can't really take over. And it's, happiness is like one of the ones that it's like the mind is like, oh, I want happiness to take over. Happiness is cool, but if it's coming from something that comes and goes, then that can lead to codependency, right? So it's excitement. If it's coming from something that comes and goes, then it can lead to codependency on the thing that brought about the emotion. So even the happiness and the excitement, and that was a hard one for me to really, understand and integrate because I was like, wait a minute, no, I'm not supposed to really say hi to happiness and hold space for excitement. Those are the ones, I want those to take over my body, right? But if those emotions are popping up and appearing because of something that's happening in this external reality, then it may lead me to be codependent on those things and people in order for me to continue to sustain being a host to happiness and excitement. But if I remain as the awareness of these by saying hi to all of these temporary appearances of emotions, I get more skilled at holding space for myself and others, which leads to way less projecting rage, anger, and all types of stuff onto other people and experiencing those emotions take over and run my life. But it also helps me to abide as the peace, the deep peace that we all have available to us, that is the awareness of all that stuff, right? And in my experience, far more magical and beautiful and powerful than even happiness and excitement is the joy and the deep peace that is available to all of us when we are aware of these temporary popping up experiences of emotion and circumstances. Okay. So through our awareness, instead of hitting and screaming all the time, we start to experience in real time in our lives these patterns that we no longer want to experience start to go bye-bye the more we continue to practice holding space for them. And also, as a natural byproduct of the peace that comes with practicing to hold space in that way, there's more clarity. More clarity. We're able to parent more efficiently and productively, in whatever way that looks for you. Everybody's parenting style is going to be unique to them and unique to their relationships with themselves and their children, as it should be. You are free. You are not here to create a parenting style that looks just like Jane or Jack down the street. You are here to create uniquely in a way that feels good and true for you, right? We've been programmed and conditioned for many generations to believe that the only way to drop patterns and cycles that are no longer serving us include doing a whole lot of stuff, like doing so much. Do this 5 steps, do this 20 steps, do this, do that, come back, see me, next week for the next 10 years or 5 years or 6 months or whatever. We've been programmed and conditioned that in order to drop these patterns and cycles, we need, all types of XYZ, fill in the blank. And I'm not saying that any of that does not aid and assist. However, parenthood is giving us an opportunity to experience freedom of these patterns that we no longer want to continue to cycle throughout our relationships with our children, ourselves, and others by using all of the moments throughout the day that our children trigger our programming, using all of the moments throughout the day to the best of our ability that our children trigger the beliefs we were conditioned and programmed with. When we are triggered, we have an opportunity to experience more freedom. The trigger is an invitation to more freedom, an invitation to be aware. There is freedom in your awareness. Tons of bondage when we are not aware and the emotions take over. Right? So programmed and conditioned to believe that in order to stop spanking all the time, screaming all the time, power struggles with our children all the time, we have to do a whole lot. May this message be an invitation that you really don't have to do anything consistently except give yourself permission to be more aware of the emotions that arise when you are triggered so that you can practice getting stronger at holding space for them, at focus, concentration, and holding space for the emotions and thought patterns that pop up when you are triggered. The more you practice this, the less they are going to run the show, and the more you are going to watch these patterns leave. And then it's like, well, Michelle, what am I going to do instead of hit, spank, etc. as these patterns continue to dissolve? You're going to be able to take action and think from and speak from a higher vibration, a higher energy than you would have been if those energies had taken over. We can't say exactly what it would look like, nor would it be any fun, if we knew exactly what you would do, but it's going to be from a higher energy, more closely to peace, to love, to compassion, to understanding, more closely to the joy that's within you when we are not being taken over by these other thought forms that we've been programmed with and lower vibes. So it's not so much that we have to have an exact way of being when we're at peace. It's more so that when we are at peace, the infinite intelligence and the genius within you gets to take over, and you get to just be in awe of how things manifest through you when you are clear, right? And you have access to this. You have access to this to the degree that you are giving yourself permission to practice being more aware of our emotions. So through being more aware of our emotions and when we are triggered throughout the day, it puts us in a very powerful position to experience more love, unity, connection, and teamwork vibes with our children. So the mind will say things such as, I don't have time for this, and totally understandable. But seeing as when our emotions take over, time and space is given to that, for that to happen. So if anger takes over me right now, and runs the show, which leads to spanking, screaming, all types of other stuff, or saying things that I don't really mean, and negatively impacting my relationships, that takes time. So the mind will say, I don't have time to start practicing to take 2 seconds here, 3 seconds there, to call out the emotion and say hi to it and just practice strengthening my ability to hold space for it, right? The mind will say, I don't have time for this type of a practice, or I don't have time to make peace a priority. And I can see why the mind would say that. But at the same time, when we let anger take over, or when we let embarrassment or insecurity and these other emotions take over, it takes time. It actually takes a lot of time, right? And then there's the whole time that it takes for us to apologize. And then there's the whole time that it takes for us and our children and our home environment to have to kind of recalibrate to peace over time after the huge outburst that went down when the emotions took over. So our lack of awareness, my unawareness, is actually taking more time than the time it would take for me to actually intentionally practice holding space for the emotion and calling it out for a few seconds so that it does not run the show, right? So the mind will say things like, I don't have time for this, or this is going to take too long. This is another thing the mind will say. It's going to take too long for me to get skilled at holding space for my emotions. Will it though? Will it? Because even if I am brand new to all of this and I start practicing today for the very first time, it's like with every time I practice, I'm getting more skilled, and I'm also experiencing the magic and benefit of doing it firsthand in real time. So let's say in 2 minutes, my daughter spills her water on the floor in the kitchen and breaks the glass even, right? Even if this is my first time ever practicing something like this, for me to utilize that practice and say, okay, I am triggered and it's okay. Hey, Rach, I see you. Even doing that once, I have gained experience that will last a lifetime. Even just doing that once, I have experienced firsthand that I am able to hold space for the rage. I am able to pause. I am able to look at the emotion and to be the awareness of it. I am able, right? And that was just one time. Now, can you imagine if you practice it multiple times in a day and actually stay consistent with it, where you'll be in a week? I'm telling you, I don't know if I said it either in either of the programs that I have with parents right now, or if it was in one of the most recent episodes that I created, but do not be surprised if you make this a practice and you start to look back a week later, 2 weeks later, 2 months later, a year later, and look back and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like a whole different human. Because the more you continue to practice being aware instead of letting your emotions run the show, the more you start to basically experience life a completely different way, and from a higher level of emotional intelligence, and from the genius and brilliance that is within you that can't really come through when these other emotions are running the show. So yeah, the mind is going to have a lot of pushback to a lot of this stuff, but let's look at the pushback that the mind gives us, at least. Anytime that we're attempting to do something that is going to add more peace to our lives and our relationships, it's okay for the mind to push back, but let's look at the pushback instead of just allowing the mind to push back and agreeing with the pushback. Because the pushback that we get from the mind is usually the unconscious beliefs and limited thought patterns that we've been conditioned with that lead us to not do what leads to us experiencing more peace to begin with. So look at the pushback, question it. If you agree with it, that's one thing. But if you don't, and you can see it for the programming and just the fact that it doesn't resonate with who and what you are right now in your own evolution, if you can see that, then that pushback is no longer going to unconsciously hold you back from doing the things that you want to do in your life that lead you to experiencing more peace in your relationship with yourself and your child. So the mind's going to push back. That's cool. Just look at the pushback and give yourself permission to choose to agree with it, or to choose to acknowledge and honor the fact that that pushback and the mind's resistance no longer resonates. Okay. So An intentional action step that would go along with this particular podcast episode is to just stretch your ability to focus and concentrate and be more aware in the moments that we are triggered, and not just triggered in ways that are like low vibe. Like, let's try to practice holding space for all emotions. And at least that gives us also an opportunity to be grateful for the moments that something happens that does bring up happiness and excitement. And let's practice that. And one of the coolest ways I've seen to practice this has been like strengthening that muscle of awareness and holding space is when you're triggered, saying hi to it and like putting your hand on your heart, closing your eyes or keeping your eyes open. This is all very malleable. You take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and also take it and make it your own, tweak it to make it your own, right? But it's like, let's say I'm triggered by something, boom, triggered. And then it's like holding a hand on my heart, closing my eyes and just doing, if I'm very new to this and I've never practiced at all attempting to be aware of my inner state of being, maybe I want to start with just a 2 count. And so just holding my hand on my heart and just counting 1, 2. That already I have stretched my ability to be aware of and hold space for the emotion anger by 2 seconds compared to not at all. It's right. It sounds trivial, but over time, this really is a game changer, right? It really is highly transformative, life-changing, but we start small. For those of you who may have been, on this path for a very, very long time of attempting to live more consciously, more peacefully, maybe 2 is too low, right? But you still find yourself spanking, screaming, etc. Start with a 7 count, start with an 8 count, start with a 10 count, and it's just practicing the whole purpose of game plans to the degree that I create them with the parents that I partner with in either of the 2 programs that I have, or just to the degree that I use them in my own life and have been using them in my own life since my daughter was 2.5 years old, or to the degree that I speak of them in this particular podcast. The whole purpose of them is to not just use the ones that resonate on a Monday and a Wednesday or on a Tuesday at 5 p.m. It's to be consistent, to consistently have some type of practice or game plan that resonates with you, that is helping you to experience more peace consistently. So for this one, it would be to consistently hold my hand on my heart and do a 2 count or a 5 count or a 6 count. And you can extend that count once holding space for anger, rage, frustration, etc. for 5 seconds is like easy peasy, is so easy. Once that's occurred, once you've mastered that 5-second hold, expand it, set it to 7 seconds, set it to 10 seconds, right? Because the intention is to expand that muscle, to stretch that muscle. And it is a muscle that can be stretched to a very, very large degree, right? So I would start with that. And so a core recommended game plan, of course, is to, for those of you listening who really want to reduce spanking, screaming, overwhelm, frustration, a core game plan would be that I always recommend beyond any other game plan on the planet. A core one very foundational. We want to build on a very strong foundation. And so one of the core foundational game plans basics that I recommend for those of you listening who want to reduce those patterns and experience more peace in parenthood is from the moment you wake up, it's waking up and it's choosing any of the following or creating your own. It's either taking 5 conscious breaths where you bring your attention to the natural rhythm of your breath, your inhale, your exhale, just not a deep breath, just your natural rhythm of your breath. You bring your attention to the inhale and exhale for a 5 count or a 10 count, a 15 count or a 20 count. You use your own judgment. Or maybe it's right when you wake up, you do a 30-second meditation, which is the exact same thing as the conscious breath, but it's just for 30 seconds. Close your eyes and bring your attention to the natural rhythm of your breath. Or maybe you microdose the meditation for a minute or 2 minutes. Choose whichever one resonates based on where you're at. Or maybe all of this meditation and stuff is very new for you. Then right when you wake up, give yourself permission to just take 5 deep breaths immediately, or 10 deep breaths, or just 5 breaths immediately, right? And then set a reminder on your phone, to a timer or an alarm or a literal reminder on your phone, whichever one of those you're more fond of using on your phone. Set a reminder to do it again in either 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, or 3 hours, depending on where you're at your journey. If you're spanking or screaming 1 to 5 times per week, I highly recommend starting with an hour for sure. But at the same time, if you do 2 hours or 3 hours or every 4 hours, you're still going to experience tremendous benefit if you stick with this for at least minimum 21 days. Because anytime you add a habit or anytime you add something that actually amplifies peace or adds peace to your life consistently, daily, you're going to inevitably experience the benefits of doing so. I'm not going to tell you the benefits that I've experienced in my life or the benefits that the clients and the parents I partner with have experienced in their life when they use this particular core game plan, because that would take the fun out of it. What matters more than anything is that you get to experience the magic firsthand yourself. So again, it's to do whichever of those you feel is best for you when you wake up in the morning, and then setting a timer on your phone to do it again in either 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, or 4 hours. And to do that consistently at minimum until the kids go to bed, even when they're not with you because they're at school and you're at work, at minimum. This releases tension from your body, the tension and the stress that builds up in your body. It releases it throughout the day. Yes, meditating in the morning at night is cool, but we want to make it to where we are being more present and feeling more peace throughout the day consistently. Because you are worthy of a life. You are worthy of a life and experiencing life from less resistance and from how you're going to experience it as you continue to release tension from your body consistently. So that is a core recommended game plan that I'm going to leave you with, that I will probably mention on most episodes as well. And then I'll also, in the name of transparency, I will also share a game plan, one of the few game plans that I have running for myself currently that has been really helping me. So of course, there's the core game plan that I just gave you. I've been using some variation of that now for about 7 years, right? There's always something I'm doing throughout the day systematically that helps me release tension throughout the body. So that is there. It's a basic, it's fundamental. And so there's that. So kind of like a peaceful and empowered parenting ecosystem is having that as one of your core game plans, and then also having another one running that can help you as well to experience more peace in parenthood. And one of my favorites currently, there are quite a few, but I'm only going to share one for right now, an additional one right now. One of my favorites right now is to make sure that throughout my day, I am not just running on autopilot and doing what I feel I have to do, that I am writing down or making note of the things that I feel inspired to do today. That might include things that I do, quote unquote, have to do, like cleaning the kitchen or, some of these other things that I feel I have to do. But the difference is on this particular list, I am keeping track of it based on what I feel inspired to do in the moment, right? So an example might be waking up and giving myself time to really tune into myself, hand on my heart, and just really tune into what I'm feeling inspired to do right now. Yeah, there's a ton of stuff that it looks like I gotta do, but what am I really feeling right now that I feel inspired to do, right? And then giving myself permission to write like next steps, right? I'm not talking about what I feel inspired to do long term, in 5 months, in 6 months. I'm talking about next steps. What do I feel inspired to do in the next now moments? And then giving myself permission to write those things down. And then giving myself permission as well to prioritize doing those things. And what you'll start to see is a lot of times those things are, things that your mind would have not let you consider, which is really cool because you're allowing yourself the freedom to include in your day things that you really are inspired to do, but are kind of out of the box, outside of the regular program. And then also you'll see sometimes what pops up on the list are the things that would have been on your to-do list as obligations. But because you're putting those quote unquote obligatory lists or obligatory tasks on your list at the time you feel inspired to do them, you're doing them with a higher energy. You're doing them with more love and more understanding and more awareness because you're doing them at a time you feel inspired to do them versus a time that you're doing them just because you feel you have to. So that has been something I've been, doubling down on as well, coupled with a few other game plans, and also with, of course, making sure I release tension throughout the day so that so that, we're less likely to project our emotions when we are making the time and space to release throughout the day. All right, so the past has taught me that in order to drop certain patterns and habits that I am sick and tired of looping over and over again, that it's going to take forever, it's going to take years, it's going to be extremely hard work, it's going to be very, very difficult and unbearable. However, what we are learning through experience and through practice is that it is possible to reduce overwhelm, tension, screaming, power struggles, spanking, etc. in our home by giving ourselves permission to practice being more aware of our emotions as they come and go, right? The awareness doesn't go bye-bye. You're always able to be aware and to abide as that awareness and the peace that comes with doing so. The emotions and the circumstances, they come and they go, and we are, through practice, getting more skilled at holding space for it instead of letting it take over, right? And run the show. So, in closing with an affirmation, I am free to parent from my heart and to create my own life and parenting style that feels true for me. And I'm looking forward to being with you guys in the next bite-sized, empowered, and peaceful parenting episode, which lately has not been so bite-sized, but we'll get there. Peace.